You are now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Kat Chrysostum went from broken to branded. Today, she'll explain how. Kat, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Bill. Excited to talk to you.
Now, Kat, your book is entitled Broken to Branded, and you start out by saying opportunity can be anywhere. But if I remember the beginning of your book, your opportunity started in a ditch. Is that right?
That is correct, yes. An odd place for opportunity to begin,
yes,
right?
Very odd. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I grew up on a farm in a family full of medical professionals, sort of predestined, you could say, for the medical field. And I was studying school like any 20-year-old. I'm in my third year of college. Everything was going great. And, of course, I had everything figured out, knew exactly what I was going to be doing, or so I thought. And I actually took an opportunity on spring break in March of 2011 to go ride horses. And as I said, I grew up on a farm. I'd always been very passionate about horses. And went to Florida after a beautiful ride on a really sunny, gorgeous Florida spring break day. Was riding back to the barn, and we were going over an embankment over a really large drop for drainage, like you said, a ditch. It was about 15 feet down, and my horse that I was riding, he stumbled. We both tumbled off the embankment, both tumbling 15 feet, and it actually resulted in fracturing of both of our necks. I woke up and was paralyzed, was told I would never ride again and may never walk again, was on a ventilator, had an array of other injuries, and told that the horse was dying. And it was really a split second that changed everything, for me, changed the whole trajectory of my life, and more importantly, completely changed my identity. From that moment on, it was my whole identity that I had as far as academia and, studies and being a horseback rider and athletic. It was like all of that was lost. I lost my scholarship. Medical bills started to stack up, and it was really just a split second that changed my life.
But it's interesting how you look at that, because your chapter in the beginning of the book is opportunity. You don't say hardship or my life started in the gutter or, I thought I was about to die. You looked at this and took it as an opportunity, which I think was great. And you actually learned about the horse business, I think, from your dad. Am I correct?
I did. So my father actually wasn't in the horse business, but he always supported my passion for horses. He was actually a dentist, but he's an entrepreneur. Unlike most, medical professionals that go to work and come home, on a regular sort of job or work for a practice, he owned his practice, and I watched my father grow a one-room operatory, very small mom and pop little office, actually in a renovated home in Wagner, South Carolina, to one of the biggest dental practices with over 19 operatories, managing 35 staff members. And I was just always so proud of him, but I was also always very intrigued, what gave him that success. And so I'd always ask, and looking back, I was the nagging 10-year-old, who always wanted to know about, new deals or him buying the buildings or whatever he was doing. I was always very interested in it. And he gave me an opportunity as a young 13-year-old girl. He bought a pony for me and said, look, if you keep track of all the expenses, and when you sell him, whatever you sell him for, you pay me back for what I bought him for, plus all the expenses I've put into him, and we split the rest 50-50. And that money actually went to great things, to start my business, to pay for some of my college years. And so it ended up being a great investment. Maybe it was beginner's luck, I don't know. But he certainly was always behind me with that entrepreneurial spirit.
And most of us want a pony just to have a little fun at birthday parties, etc. But you started, and little did you probably know at the time, this would lead you into your business. Now, here you are with a broken neck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess most of us, if we fell off a horse, even though it was an accident, we would say, I'm not going back to that, just like some of us are afraid to drive a car.
Sure.
Did you have a great fear about going back?
I did, yeah. So I do talk about that quite a bit in the beginning of the book. I had a triple fracture of my C2 vertebrae, which is also known as a hangman's fracture, and was on a ventilator. I had broken and bruised ribs. I was put on into a halo traction device, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that is, but it's basically a carbon fiber vest that's sheepskin lined. I kind of jokingly say it reminds me of a medieval torture device. It has 2 rods in the front and 2 metal rods in the back, and each rod has a screw that they actually torque onto your skull with 32 pounds of pressure, and it is essentially a cast for your neck. It's holding the weight of your head off your spine, so it allows it time to heal, and that's, of course, permanently on until they remove it. So I was in that halo, heavily sedated, nearly an induced coma for 3 months post-accident. So for those 3 months, really, life was, going by. The world was moving on, and I was in a bed, bedridden and pretty much immobile. And once that halo was taken off, I was put into a hard neck collar, and that's when I really began to realize what the accident had done. Up until then, I think I was, surviving, but I was also very heavily sedated and sort of, almost out of consciousness to be able to know what had actually happened in my life. And once I got into that hard neck collar and I started to realize, what my life had become, and that I had lost my scholarship, and, everybody else was in classes, and, it just felt completely overwhelming and almost daunting to just even the thought of going back to school. And my first and foremost thing was becoming mobile again. And so that was the start of an 18-month rehabilitation recovery path. And what kind of morphed into a total of 3 years, but I was able to regain full mobility.
Now, Kat, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just want to let our audience know, in case they're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're talking to Kat Chrysostum, and she has written a book called Broken to Branded. And Kat, where can we find the book, and is there a website you want to tell us about?
Yes, so the book is on Amazon. It's Broken to Branded, and then my main website is benefabproducts.com, and that is also has the book there.
And we'll get that information later, because I will tell our audience, this is a book, if you're interested in starting a business, if you really want to know what it takes, there's some great stories. It's short, it's to the point, but it's right on the button. And I was complimenting Kat before the show how perfect it is for our show, but it's perfect for any budding entrepreneur, someone who's thinking of starting a business, or maybe just getting out and getting your feet wet. This is the book you want to start with, Broken to Branded. Get yourself a copy and just see what Kat went through, take from her lessons, and save yourself a lot of trouble and a lot of agony. Now, Kat, you had this accident, and how did this get you into a business, though? What's the connection between a broken neck that you had, falling off a horse, and the business you now have today?
Sure. So in part of my rehabilitation journey, I was actually speaking with some neurologists, and I was essentially pleading with them at that point because I tried everything. I wasn't regaining mobility back in my right side and was just really struggling on a day-to-day basis, and I was temporarily in and out of full paralysis, and that was because my spinal cord was being inflamed, but it was just bruising. It wasn't actually damaging. So you can imagine the fear of the unknown, like, is this going to go away? Is it not? Am I ever going to regain full mobility? And I was essentially pleading with this group of neurologists that I had been working with, and I just said, is there anything else I can do? I was doing physical therapy, all sorts of different things, was on a lot of different medications, still in a tremendous amount of pain, and one of them, in a very offhand way, had recommended something called far infrared light therapy, and I had never heard of it before. I ended up diving into research and having, sort of this research-driven mind and a little bit of medical knowledge, and having family members in that profession. I started speaking with them about it and found an office that was nearby that offered this, what's also known as red light therapy, is what it's commonly known as. And I went underneath the red light solarium, and for the first time since my accident, I was able to walk out with full mobility. Now, I lost that mobility within just about 2 hours, but I realized what it had done. It had reduced the inflammation. I was able to move. It wasn't pretty, but I was able to move all of my limbs, and that was fascinating to me. So I ended up actually purchasing, of course, a light of my own, and sat in front of it for 18 months, twice a day, every day. And it was amazing what it did, and I wanted to find a way to give that therapy to more people and to educate, people about the wellness and the benefits of it. And here I am. So I now have a full line of wearable clothing that mimics red light therapy. So it's wearable clothing for animals and for people.
And all this came about because you broke your neck. Yes, it's truly making lemonade out of lemons. and that's what we want people to know, that sometime a bad event or, a breakup or someone passing away or getting injured or moving that you think is a negative can turn into a positive. Keep your eyes open, as Kat started her book. Opportunity can be anywhere, and hers was in the bottom of a ditch. And I'm sure at that time and for months afterward, you never thought this was going to lead to what it did today. You mentioned, though, that you feel you must grab opportunity within 30 minutes or it's likely to be lost forever. Why is that?
The reason why, and I chose 30 minutes because I feel like, I know for me, I have a lot of thoughts that happen inside my own head, and they're likely to be lost, or you at least lose that fire, that passion when you have an idea. And although we can't all act on it within 30 minutes, I would encourage everybody to write it down, put it in a safe place, and that will trigger that same thought, and you'll keep that passion and act on it as soon as you can. I think that's really important, because otherwise we lose that sort of spark that happens when we have an idea. And, somebody actually asked me relatively recently, looking back on my accident, looking back on everything, they said, do you feel like things happen for a reason? And I've never really liked that, because when I first liked that whole statement, because when I very first had my accident, a young woman who I was dear friends with from college had flown down to see me in the hospital, and she rubbed my shoulder, and like my skin, everything was hurting at the time. I just felt like I was on fire, and she rubbed my shoulder, and I was on a ventilator, so I couldn't speak. And she said, I'm so sorry this happened to you, Kat, but always remember everything happens for a reason. And I sort of grunted, and I remember cutting my eyes over at her, like, are you kidding me? Yeah, you can say that because you're walking out of here, and it's not you. But now looking back, somebody had asked me the other day, well, do you think that now seeing what happened, does it happen for a reason? And I want to touch on that, because I think that not everything happens necessarily for a reason, but it's our job to control. We can control the outcome of something. I could have very well have just not done anything about this and played that victim role and not regained my mobility and not fought, like crazy to be where I am. But I think that that's the really important takeaway, is that no matter what you face, you control your outcome.
Kat, at this point in the show, we have to take a brief break, but we want to know more about Broken to Branded. We want to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan. This show is produced at the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We'll be right back after this brief intermission.
I'm a college student and could use advice about my student loan.
I had to leave school and go to work. Now I have to pay back student loans for a degree I don't have. Fortunately, I found assistance.
Back in college, I figured they wouldn't lend me more than I could easily pay back. Boy, was I wrong. Thankfully, I got the help I needed to pay back my loan in full.
Sound familiar? The good news is that student loan repayment options are available. We're the NFCC, the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, a nonprofit organization with member offices nationwide that provide comprehensive financial reviews and student loan counseling. NFCC certified consumer credit counselors provide one-on-one financial counseling and can help you evaluate options for making student loan payments, reducing interest, debt consolidation, or even loan rehabilitation. Call 877-406-6322 or visit us online at studentloanhelp.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're talking to Kat Chrysostum, author of Broken to Branded. Kat, you have a concept called failing forward. What does that mean?
Well, a lot of people say fast failing, but I believe failing forward is really important because as an entrepreneur and really just as a human being, we are going to fail. Whether it's failed relationships or, even someone in school with a test that has gone wrong, or in a major business or in a small business, we're going to fail. And when we fail, it's what we do, how we get back up. And I think the important thing is to not let your failures become your setbacks. Let your failures become your springboards to success. And that's what I mean by failing forward. Learn from your mistakes and apply what you learned and do it again. And if you fail the next time, learn more and you keep going, but you keep moving forward.
Now, if I read your book correctly, to give an example to our audience, you had your company set up, you had a nice name, and then you got a letter. What happened?
Oh, goodness. Yes, I did. So I had what I thought was a lovely name, and, it was just my naivety. I didn't do my research as I should have going into the market, and things were starting to click along and do okay, and I got a knock at my door one day and got a letter from a very large pharmaceutical company. I can't mention any names, but they could have squished me like the cockroach that I was if you listened to Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank. That really, it was devastating. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but I went to my desk and I just cried. I didn't know what to do, where to even start, and it definitely crossed my mind to give up. I had built the whole business around that name. And what was unique about that is I think problems always seem bigger at night. If you can get through the night, they always look a little brighter in the morning. And the next morning, I woke up and I was, through with the tears and started thinking, okay, is there a way that I can get out of this? And kind of at a loss for myself, I picked up the phone and started calling different people that I had networked with before. And what was so amazing was in that moment how many people came to help me. I mean, how many people offered their services at discounted or no cost, people who I didn't even think would be there, when the chips were down. People who I had no idea, even people of their friends. And what really made me realize that moment made me realize how much people want to see you succeed if you surround yourself with the right folks.
And I think you even mentioned that just by focusing on your goals, that helped you get rid of the negativity. Was that helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was on a panel relatively recently, and one of the men had a military background. He's a very successful entrepreneur now, and but with his military background, he said, it's mighty hard to hit a target you're not aiming for. And I thought,
I love that.
So true. I talk about goal setting a lot, but yes, absolutely, that helped tremendously. Knowing what I was aiming for, knowing what I needed, and really siphoning everything out around me, all the noise, and just keeping on that one track. And unless people were there rooting and supporting me, then I just sort of. I never cut anybody off. That's what's unique about that. When you change your mindset, the people who don't support you just sort of disappear into the distance. I think that's really hard to wrap your mind around unless you start living that and you start realizing that. But it's amazing the people you cultivate in your circle and the people who sort of drop off.
Now, Kat, before we get into some more questions, I'd like to let our audience know that if you're just tuning in, today our guest is Kat Chrysostum, and that's spelled Chrysostom. Her book is Broken to Branded, and you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Kat, we want our audience to know, where can they get your book, and is there a website where they can find out more information?
Yes, absolutely. So the website is benefabproducts.com. You can also learn a bit more on my personal website that also has a direct link to Amazon. The book is on Amazon, and that website is katchrysostum.com.
And also to our audience, if you missed the first part of the show, you want to know more, or you just want to listen more carefully, you can always go to nccradio.org. That's nccradio.org. Go to podcasts and then go to The Secrets of Success. And you'll find Kat's show. You can listen to it again, take the outtakes that are most interesting to you or for your business, get the information, go to her website, get the copy of the book, and then become successful like Kat and write her a letter and say how helpful this book was to you. Now, Kat, everything about your lifestyle now sounded good. The company is doing well. You're going great guns. And then I read something like, I thought entrepreneurs slept late and went to a lot of parties. You get up at 4 a.m., you live in a wrecked vehicle, and you work like 7.5 days a week. Talk about that.
Yes, yeah. So I still work that much, and I sleep in about an hour later than that. But I do now live in a house, so that is a beautiful thing. I lived, starting this up, I lived in an RV and pretty much emptied my, well, not pretty much, I emptied my savings and climbed into debt to get this all going. But it's a beautiful thing because now I'm seeing it, has come to fruition, and my lifestyle materialistically has improved, which is nice. But yes, I work like crazy. I actually laughed. I had a conversation with a young college student who I had spoken at the school, and they came up afterward, and he said, I want to live like the 5-hour work week. That book that, you live on an island with a private jet and you work 5 hours.
Right.
I said, good luck.
Good luck. We had that author on, and while I admire it as a book, I'm saying, you know what? Either he's very, very good about dividing up and prioritizing time, or else maybe there's a little fiction in there, because 99%, we've been on 30 years, 99% of the entrepreneurs don't live that life. It's a struggle at first, and then they get the rewards they've worked so hard for later on.
Right.
Now, something that's interesting, you say it's the journey that really matters. I would think right now you'd like to sit back and reap in all those millions and enjoy it, but you really enjoyed the journey, right?
Yes, absolutely. I love the process, and I think that's something I am very passionate about, is the process of many different things, but just the process or journey or whatever you want to call it. And I think that's something, that if you appreciate that as an entrepreneur, and I should say I'm passionate about the process, but also the end result. I think people can get really wrapped up in consistently just being a project after project after project. You still want that end goal and to meet your targets and your deadlines, but I think what I enjoy most is being able to take, something from A to Z and appreciating, all of that gray area in between. Things aren't black and white in business and in life. And I think once you can embrace that, sort of gray, and you can appreciate the process, it really becomes quite enjoyable.
Now, you obviously were a horse person. You knew a lot about them. You loved the farm, working with horses. But I see in your book, and it shows that it's almost natural, you're very business-oriented, and in fact, you emphasize the customer. Why do you bring out the customer's viewpoint so often?
Well, I think as business owners or people in business, I think that it's very easy to forget that without your customer, you wouldn't be in business. And I just so appreciate the customer and their perspective, because at the end of the day, their perspective is what the outside is doing it. You know, it's very easy from the office or the headquarters to be looking out and thinking how people are perceiving you. But it's really important to be able to hear their viewpoint and remember how important those customers are. And what customer service, this modern business style and things in the past, especially 5 years, we've really lost customer service as a whole. Not my company. I think that's really what keeps us standing out. But I mean, how many times do you call a business and you're placed on those automated messaging machines? You get so irritated, I hang up the phone half the time. It's like, representative, I just want to speak
exactly.
to somebody.
Yes, I think all of us love you for saying that.
Yeah, yes, that I will pay more. I mean, that's what somebody should do. They should create a service where you just pay like more for a concierge service within these companies to just get directly to somebody. But that is something, I think Ryan Cohen with Chewy, who I mentioned in the book, Chewy.com, I think he has done an incredible job at embracing that and standing out and, building an amazing business around great customer service. So that's a lot of the reasons why I really emphasize the customer, because it is all about them.
And as you said, without the customer, you're not going to have a business. And you have one subheading in your book, and it's so right out there. You say, if you want to know what the customer wants, just ask. And so many of us fight them. You're wrong. I gave you good service, or the steak was very good. No, if the customer doesn't think it's very good, it probably isn't, or it's not good to the customer's taste buds. Work with them rather than against them, and both sides will have a much longer, happy existence. Kat, once again, I want you to tell us before we wrap up about, is it Benefab, how you spell that, and where we can find out more about Benefab?
Yes. Benefab stands for Beneficial Fabrics, so it's BENEFAB, and it's benefabproducts.com, and then my personal site is katchrysostum.com, and the book is on Amazon.
And I think our audience can see you're a very nice person. If they want to know more about this, I'm sure they can get in touch with you by either email or through your website, find out about the product, how it can help you, how it can help maybe your pet or any horses that you may have or other animals. And you'll see why Kat's such a success, because she'll take good care of you. Kat, thanks so much for being with us today. We want to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.